trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the Step Up motion picture soundtrack, Step Up 2, I mean. So this is Step Up 2, The Streets, the soundtrack, and basically this came out in early 2008, basically bolstered with the huge hit single that lasted for about a good portion of winter 2008, Low, by Flo Rida featuring T-Pain. So Step Up, if you don't know, basically a series of dance movies that come out, and I've seen at least the first one, but I think they're particularly interesting just because their soundtracks always feature some pretty good dance cut numbers and like pseudo club tracks and kind of music like Ciara and Missy Elliott and Trey songs and T-Pain, that type stuff. That's what you're going to kind of find. At least the last time I checked in with them, that's kind of the stuff. I've at least listened to this soundtrack before, but I wanted to cover it just because it has some two exclusive Missy Elliott soundtracks that basically Missy Elliott was supposed to put out a project in 2008. I want to say it was going to be called like Block Party or something, but it got scrapped. She dropped a couple singles around that time. I don't know if these are the singles that they were, but she had initially planned to do it. And this is the closest thing we got to a Missy Elliott album back in 2008. Because really, even to this day, she has not dropped an album since 2005's The Cookbook, which I've gotten a taste of that. I bought that album a few years ago, and I really appreciate songs like We Run This and Lose Control. Those are good, but to kind of say if that's the most recent Missy Elliott, it's kind of like, well, there's actually some 2008 songs that's about the closest thing we're going to get, minus her 2019 EP, Iconology. So I felt with that, and there's some other good stuff on here. This album is mostly bolstered by songs that are already on other artists' albums. So like Trey Songz drops a song, but you can find it on his album Trey Day. Plies drops a song, but it's on his 2007 album. Flo Rida, you can find Low on his 2008 album because that was such a large single and stuff that, you know, he was going to keep that song. But in terms of like the exclusives that are kind of only on this project, I would say there's a number of like lesser known artists on here, but then there's also the two Missy Elliott singles, and then I would have to say like Cassie, who, you know, Puff Daddy dated and had like a kind of minor hit album back in 2006. She gives this album an exclusive song. But yeah, so this is a bunch of kind of dance pop, light R&B, and kind of light hip hop type stuff. I mean, the closest, like, Plies and Young Jock are about as real rugged as it gets, but it's just kind of within the setting of being flirtatious. So it's not like you're going to get, like, some Laffy Taffy type stuff or, you know, which is too bad. I would definitely like the song like Laffy Taffy on here, something like that, you know, Bet You Can't Do It Like Me. But really, it's pretty light club oriented because I think this was a PG-13 movie. So the singles, I'm not really sure. I'm not going to list all of them just because there's so many on here. Like a few of them, Low was obviously like what I was talking about. I'll go ahead and talk about that one just because it was such a large song. It was a huge ringtone hit back in the ringtone days. T-Pain had a pretty inescapable hook, you know, the apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur. It's a club song, but then it's kind of not. I feel like schools could pick up on this song. And it is a nice club song, but it's so light and kind of pop rap. It's kind of like something you would have expected Nelly to have made, just kind of with more sing-songy appeal towards it. It really is like a ringtone song, and I appreciate it, but I kind of feel like that is pretty like licorice pop rap, and that's kind of the thing. So, but like Cherish dropped a pretty good song with Young Jock. That's a single that was on here. I like that one quite a bit. I especially like Young Jock's verse on here. He really helped anchor the song, and it's good just because there's not too many. I mean, Cherish was kind of not in the game for very long. Trey Songz drops a pretty stylish and smooth hit with Can't Help But Wait. T-Pain has a follow-up hit, even though I wish T-Pain would have dropped an exclusive song for this album, because I could tell that people were kind of wanting some T-Pain, and I know he probably could have. I definitely think just based off of the success of Low, maybe it would have stolen from Low's limelight, but I definitely felt like it would have been interesting to have gotten like an extra single from T-Pain just to see, because he was white hot back in like the winter of 2008, around that time. So I definitely would have felt if he would have dropped a single, I'm sure it would have at least hit like the top 30 of the Billboard 100 or something. So T-Pain, it's kind of like, damn. Uh, yeah, I would have to say Cassie had a good look. I mean, hers is kind of a little bit more serious. It's not quite as lighthearted and as frivolous, but it kind of has like the impression like she's kind of ready to, maybe not so much she's full blown get serious, but kind of in the initiative stages of that. And it's more romantic song. And Hypnotize is a nice kind of bleary kind of summer song, autumn song by Plies and Akon. Akon really isn't on here either, which is that's too bad, because he was in his prime back in those days. I really liked Enrique Iglesias' Push. That was a surprising club song that just was kind of one of the surprise hits of this project. I mean, I definitely wish it would have been exclusive to this album, but hey, it's a good song. Definitely real melodic and easy, kind of crunchy club song that just kind of works in a lot of ways. It's probably one of the more like. Well, we'll go ahead and talk about the. Here, I'll list a few of the club songs that have the most kind of litness in terms, not so much litness, but like something you could listen to at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I feel like Ching-a-ling, Ain't No Stressin', Shake Your Pom Pom, Church. Some of those are some night based ones if you're looking for the direct how do I get turned up. But like I said, keep in mind this is PG-13, so it's not so much all ages, but so yeah, I mean, this is not it's not necessarily for all ages, but it's not quite as turned up as it possibly could be, and I definitely feel like there's songs like Push, songs like Ching-a-ling that kind of do that, but it's not quite full blown like rave and that type stuff type club. It's just kind of more like a dance, like more. It's the emphasis that because the movie is about dancing, the emphasis is on dancing. But you get the idea. It's just kind of light. I mean, it's just like coffee light, those type things. It's like the decaf version of what like I don't know if it you get the idea. You get what I'm trying to say, in that it's more encompassed as opposed to having, because one of my favorite songs on this album is Ching-a-ling by Missy Elliott. I was surprised that she dropped this like a full blown kind of crazy. I mean, this is like, I mean, the dance songs that Missy Elliott dropped are really refined, and I definitely feel like as far as that's concerned, Missy, she's a pro at doing like dance songs, and like in some cases club songs. She's done songs like Get Your Freak On and Gossip Folks and stuff like that, Lose Control, some of those type numbers. But I kind of feel like, a couple of things. For one thing, I look at Missy Elliott and it's like, I mean, it kind of felt this kind of nonchalant, just the way that these songs kind of happen. But at the same time, Ching-a-ling was especially crunchy. I really felt like that's like a true rump shaker and a true one to kind of get crunk to, even. I feel like, yeah, I mean, Ching-a-ling was just a lot more of a crunchy type song, and that's kind of the thing. Ching-a-ling, definitely, I like the approach of it. It just felt rougher, something you could have with a drink in your hand, something to really get crunk for the night, get some grind action, that type of stuff. It's fun just to kind of have for like a nice song for that. Missy Elliott really kind of nailed it. But then Shake Your Pom Pom was lighter, it's not quite as up tempo and as fierce as Ching-a-ling, but I feel like it's still kind of a going through the night, because for the most part Missy Elliott doesn't always necessarily keep the tempo with, like, on her albums, like the ones she dropped in like the early 2000s, the tempo would kind of change. But I felt like these are kind of like a 1-2 punch, where you get two songs that you would hear in a dance club in the same night. Like maybe one night you'll hear like Get Your Freak On, and another night you'll hear like Lose Control. But for the most part, unless it's like a Missy Elliott theme type thing, you're probably not going to hear two songs kind of within the same night from her, especially off the same album even. But I feel like both of these kind of have, I mean, they're good in combination just to kind of say, hey, you know, we've progressed to this. It's kind of the concept that goes along with the singles here. To me, Ching-a-ling is the one that's the initial kind of getting rough, like, yeah, I'm in a good mood type thing. But Shake Your Pom Pom was kind of more like it just didn't have, it kind of settled down a bit. So really, Shake Your Pom Pom is not too, like, I need to listen to it a little bit more. Shake Your Pom Pom is not quite that much lighter in pace than Ching-a-ling, but it's still kind of more, I guess it's more presentable, not quite as rough and as saucy as Ching-a-ling is, but I still like it. It's just kind of more like tidy. I guess it's kind of, in terms of like a dance club song, I would say it's just more of a tidy kind of dance song, and that's kind of the situation. But it's still, you know, based upon talking about Shake Your Pom Pom, it's good. I mean, that's the thing, is I think Missy knows, like, being able to that's why this album is appealing like that, is because it shows the concept of what Missy could have done, supposing her 2008 album would have happened. That's kind of the concept. I wonder just about, like, if we would have got, I mean, because these songs are both good. I mean, I would purchase this album for both of these songs. That's kind of the thing about it, is wondering about what the album itself would have had. I mean, I would have liked to have known. I mean, both, the thing I like about this project, like I said, is just the fact that they're both kept in like the same setting of a dance, where it doesn't switch and it doesn't go from like, hey, I want to get laid tonight to I want to find boyfriend type stuff, you know, just that sort of vibe. You know, it's just kind of, it keeps it kind of within the same setting, especially within the pace of the movie. So I don't know if a Missy Elliott album, I definitely think she would have had a hit single off her 2008 album, but it just would have kind of been, you know, it's a mystery, and that's kind of the thing. But at least this is a sufficient, like, replacement for what we got instead, and that's kind of the concept. So kudos to Missy Elliott, definitely good job. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna list the songs I recommend to you out of 16. Really, it's easier just to kind of say the songs that there were only 5 songs I didn't enjoy that well. Not to kind of signify them as bad songs, but I'll kind of get into why a little bit. So 369, Impossible, Lives in the Club, Say Cheese, and Let It Go. Those are the 5 songs out of 16 that I didn't enjoy. And the kind of concept, I mean, most of these are just kind of one-shot folks that don't really have, I mean, B.O.B. and Cupid are at least on here, but most of these are just one-shot kind of random background dance club music that just kind of feels like, I mean, if you're listening to it, I just don't know the sheer amount of folks who are going to say, you know, like, any of these folks that are kind of just really kind of placeholders and filler almost, that folks are going to recognize them by name. I mean, the more obsessed you are with music, the more they start to stand out and stuff. But for the most part, the distinction kind of doesn't feel like it's there. And on top of that, like, the album is kind of bogged down by a lot of singles. I mean, if you have never heard these songs before, and you're hip to like relatively late 2007 2008 music, it does have a lot of good dance club and R&B type music. But a lot of these you can find, like, I just don't know why you would get the song Hypnotize on this album as opposed to getting Plies' album, because it's pretty good. It's the same thing with Flo Rida. That's a decent album. Same thing with T-Pain's album. Same thing with Trey Songz' album. So it's just kind of, you know, there's not really much reason to get this album, in my opinion, beyond the Missy Elliott songs and the Cassie song. And like, Missy Elliott definitely outdid herself. I mean, it's an easy buy, especially because this album is 14, 15 years old, just to kind of pick it up, just because you get 2 exclusive Missy Elliott songs that basically entails the second most recent thing that she's done in music. And then on top of that, like, Cassie dropped a decent song. To talk about that song, I mean, like I said, I think I covered that. It's kind of romantic R&B, kind of in a light dance club setting. It's not quite as upbeat and as riveting, but it services just kind of in a real lighthearted romantic sense, just in that kind of sense. So it's decent for Cassie, but it's just really calm. And like I did, like another song I want to point out to talk about some of these lesser known folks is I did like the Ain't No Stressin' song. I felt like that. One theme of this album that is not really on here that I noticed was just around just probably like a year and a half before that is Lil Jon. Lil Jon could really do some good dance music, but there is not hide nor hair of any crunk whatsoever on this project. And that's really too bad. The closest thing I feel like is Ain't No Stressin', which feels like a song that was like Lil Jon's Yeah or Snap Your Fingers. Those type songs had the same kind of crunk type beat, but that's the closest thing you get to crunk at all on here. And the folks that do it, they basically turn it into an R&B song. So it's kind of like, yeah, what happened to crunk? Where the fuck was Lil Jon? Why didn't he do a song for this project? And why did this album almost wholeheartedly get rid of the crunk concept that was completely enormously popular just probably 12, 15 months before that? And that's kind of strange. It's odd, but it's not on here. And that is a decent song I wanted to point out. But yeah, some of my absolute favorites would be Ching-a-ling, Shake Your Pom Pom, and Can't Help But Wait by Trey Songz, even though that's on his album, and Push by Enrique Iglesias. But basically, I liked, like I said, 11 out of 16 minus those 5 songs I noticed. So I'm going to give this album, I would give this album an 8 out of 10 if more of these songs from this project were exclusives, but I'm going to give it a 7 just because it has a lot of good songs on here, but you can find them elsewhere. And that's kind of the thing. It's not really quite as convenient just because none of these A-list artists really drop any exclusives, and that's kind of disappointing. But you do get Missy Elliott, so that's enough. That's reason enough to get it. And Cassie has a decent song also. But 7 out of 10, it excels, but it would have gotten a higher score if it would have had more exclusives. And really, I don't know what happened with the Step Up movies. I'm kind of curious about that. I'm probably going to review Step Up 3 at least this year sometime, kind of see what's up with that. But apart from those, I just would have to say, yeah, this is a solid highlight and definitely get it for some solid Missy Elliott and a few other gems in there.